Hello, it is at this time to English News for night headlines. We have the inauguration of the Assam solar power plant. For the international scene, G20 Brazil pleads for developing countries. Welcome to our newsroom. Final stop of the regional tower of the parliamentary delegation at the reflecting the symbolic event. The President of the National Assembly, His Excellency Dileita Mohammed Dileita, completed his tour of the region by going to the Tajorah, his hometown. Upon its arrival on the morning of yesterday, Thursday, February 2022, the parliamentary delegation made up of members of the assembly offices headed by the president was welcomed by a set of regional authorities led by the prefect and president of the regional council, as well as by the parliamentarian of the region. Subsequently, the president and his delegation Subsequently, the president of the National Assembly visited the Sultan of Tajora in his residence for a meeting marked by courtesy and as respect for traditions. Later, a huge crowd of Tajorians gathered in front of the prefecture to welcome the region's son, the president Data, prodigy sons of Tajora. The president's visit aroused a real surge of pride and admiration among the inhabitants of this city. The president and his delegation headed the regional council, where the president of the regional council presented the region's achievement in the recent years, as well as ongoing actions. Playing in discussions emphasized was placed on the need for green collaboration between local elected officials and parliamentarians to better serve the population. The existing challenges and the difficulties for more sustainable development to be successful were also recalled. The president of the regional council did not hesitate to reiterate his thanks to the parliamentary delegation headed by the president of the assembly for this visit, which is of capital importance for promising social and economic momentum of the region. The regional council of Tojora officials and the delegation is meeting in more friendly atmosphere to address a crucial point likely to propel innovative projects. In his speech, the head of the National Chamber, Delaita Mohammed Delaita, reiterated his joy at being among his families in Tojora, his hometown. He declared himself proud and delighted to meet and be welcomed by the president of the Regional Council of Tojora, with whom he piloted the entire process relating to the creation of the Regional Council. After a brief stop at the prefecture's house, the head of the national parliamentarian took advantage of his presence in Tojora, the White City, to visit the port of Tojora. On site, the president of the National Assembly, Delaita Mohammed Delaita, and his companion were warmly welcomed at the port by the prefect of the region, the president of the regional council, the deputy, the parliamentarian of the region, and the member of the national hemicycle, the general director of the port of Tojora, Mr. Omar Hassan Omar, and the engineers and the rest of the staff. Remember that the delegation benefited from the detailed presentations of port activities by respective port engineers, and the region also has some hotel infrastructure, accommodations, and catering, which is, if well supervised and supported, can support its socio-economic development. It is clear that the port sector represents a major asset in supporting the regional economy, with the port of Tojora coupled with the Tojora-Balho Ethiopia corridor. At the microphone, the prefect of the city welcomed him and the member of the delegation to Tojora. He informed the public that his institution is that of the regional council, the member of the government from the regions, and the parliamentarian from a single decision-making bodies for the benefit of the development of the region. In his speech, the head of the National Chamber of the Delaita Mohammed Delaita reiterated his joy at being among his family in Tojora, his hometown. He then recalled that the main objective of his travels in the region is in search of meeting the population with the sole aim of learning about the and expectations of the people to better satisfy their expectations and respond effectively to their grievance. He ended up responding on the one by one to the strong wishes expressed by the population of the region, with which he took note of. Then the president of the National Assembly met the women of Tojora at the headquarters of the UNFD branch in Tojora, where he was also warmly welcomed. Pillar of the region's development, the women of Tojora transmitted their grievances and to the parliamentary delegation. At the microphone, the female voices, after welcoming the president of the National Assembly, Delaita Mohammed Delaita, and his companion, the head of the National Chamber responded one by one with the response to the strong wishes expressed by the population to the regions to close the morning. The parliamentary delegation, headed by the president of the visited nursery of the school tree in Tojora. The vice president of the National Assembly, Safiya Almi, for her part thanked the women who spared no effort for the success of the day. In his intervention, the head of the National Hemicycle, Delaita Mohammed Delaita, in front of the voice of women, recalled the main objectives of his tour in the regions. He declared himself grateful for the place of women in the catalytic role they play for the socio-economic development of the country. He invited them to more commitment and more responsibility because the country needs it, and more particularly the development of the region depends on it, he declared in substance. In the afternoon, the delegation of Dileita Mohammed Dileita meets successively with the traditional leaders of the regions and the rural localities in the region. At the microphone, the elders at this time they reminded their main interlocutor and their concern and difficulties in country. They remember that the objectives of his trip is part of the framework of making contact on a direct local dialogue with the member of the different social category of the population. This tower, initiated by the president across all regions of the country, offers the keeper of parliament and his offices valuable opportunity to meet the population in order to hear their concern and grievances. In Assam, the Minister of Energy in charge of natural resources, His Excellency Yunus Ali Gedi, inaugurated a photovoltaic solar power plant to electrify villages. The Minister of Energy in charge of resources, His Excellency Yunus Ali Gedi, accompanied by his colleagues, the Minister Delegate in charge of decentralization, Qasim Harun Ali, and senior executives of his ministerial department, delivered yesterday, Thursday, February 2024, the regions of Ali Sabih in order to proceed with the inaugurations of the solar power plant built in the village of Asamwa Pandara Reval in the capital of Al Sabih region. The two ministers first went to the prefecture where they were warmly welcomed by the prefect of the region, Abdul Malik Muhammad Banoita. Parliamentarian of the region is the vice president of the regional council, as well as by the civil and military authorities. The two members of the government, accompanied by parliamentarian and the prefect of the region, then headed towards the village of Asamo, where they were welcomed with enthusiasm, joy by a large crowd composed of residents of Asamo, including elders, men, women, and young people, gathered at the energy infrastructure site in the early hours of the morning. It is, in fact, a solar power plant led the team of the Ministry of Energy in charge of natural resources in Asamo, with the support of the organizations attached to the department, like ADD and SIHG. It includes more than 480 quality photovoltaic solar panel financed by the own fund thanks to the state budget. It has a capacity of 150 kilowatt and will initially provide electricity to more than 675 households or more than 600 inhabitants living in this locality. In addition, each household benefited from a free electrical installation consisting of a lamp, fans, and electrical outlet in order to provide a real energy comfort services to the household in these villages with the lighting and ventilation. The Member of Parliament, Abdi Khairi Bouhi, specified that the state continues and will continue its efforts in regional development. He further urged the local population to use the electrical energy provided by the plant The deputy finally thanked the members of the government for the actions undertaken towards the populations, particularly with regard to the electrification of this village. During his speech, the prefect of the Al Sabih region, Abdul Malik Muhammad, after the cordial welcome address to the ministers, then thanked the inhabitants of Asamo for the warm welcome reserved to the ministers and delegation accompanying him. Continuing his remarks, the prefect warmly congratulated Yunus Ali Gedi and the ministry team for the work carried out relating to the constructions of the solar power plant and the electrical connections installed in more than 75 homes in the locality. He finally asked the population of the village to take care of the equipment and materials of the plant. The Minister of Decentralization, Qasim Harun Ali, recalled that he was recently in the same villages to inaugurate a market. He added the fact that the establishment of the solar power plant in Asamo by the Ministry of Energy with the access to electrical energy is part of the decentralization policy implemented under the directions of the Djiboutian head of state in the same way as the other programs implemented in the village. In particular, it is opening up access to medical care, access to education. The Minister Qasim concluded his remarks by indicating that the entire hinterland will benefit from the deployment of basic services in order to ensure regional and local development. Finally, the Minister of Energy in charge of natural resources closed the series of speeches by delivering his speech. Yunus Ali Gedi first wanted to thank the parliamentarian of the region, the prefect, and the inhabitants of the locality of Asamo. He then expressed his pride in proceeding with the inaugurations of this photovoltaic solar power plant, long awaited by the population of these villages. 1 year after the ceremony of laying the first stones of the project, the minister indicated that the photovoltaic solar power plant had a capacity of 150 kilowatt, financed with its own funds thanks to the national budget, and that it will supply clean electricity to more than 100 homes, and that initially it will supply 75 households or more than 600 inhabitants of the locality. For the minister, this illustrates the constantly renewed efforts of the ministries in making to ensure that our rural population have access to electrified official speeches. After the official speeches, Minister Yunus Ali Gedi and his colleague Qasim Harun Ali proceeded to the unveiling of the inauguration plaque of the solar power plant before visiting the various technical premises, the electrical equipment and materials of the power plant, and the site of installations of 480 photovoltaic solar panels. As a reminder, Asamo, known for its fertile lands with the high potential in agricultural productions and for its livestock breeding activity, is a village located 50 kilometers southeast of Ali Sabih on the borders with Ethiopia, made up of around 100 houses. This village has more than 140 fixed households, with the total population estimated at around 2,200 inhabitants, including a large nomadic population widely dispersed outside the center of the villages. Sources of income for the population of Asamo come from the sale of fruit from agricultural plantations, as well as those from cattle and goat breeding. Finally, in this village there is a primary school with more than 200 students and a health center, a military camp, and mosque. It was yesterday in a gestures marking the successful conclusions of the training of the Delta Monitoring and Evaluation Platforms. Participants from various sectoral ministries were honored in a graduation ceremony full of recognitions and pride. The closing of this intensive training, which took place at the campus key, transformed for the occasion into an auditorium dedicated to this major initiative, was chaired by the Secretary General of the Ministry of Economy and Finance, alongside the representatives of Delta G's firm involved in this initiative enterprises. This ceremony was a moment of celebration of the commitment and dedication of the participants. Various ministries were eagerly acquiring the skills necessary to master the data platform. The graduation ceremony was the highlight of the event, with each participant receiving a certificate symbolizing their success in understanding and effectively using the Delta platform. Their efforts have been held as a valuable contribution to Djibouti's advancement towards a prosperous and sustainable future. For his part, the Secretary General of the Ministry of Economy and Finance, Abdulrazak Ahmed Idris, said that this ceremony was not only an act of individual recognition, but also an affirmation of the Djiboutian government's continued commitment to building the capacity of its civil servant. By supporting and promoting initiatives such as Delta platforms, the government demonstrates its desire to modernize the governance process and promote inclusive economic and social development for all citizens. And now the Jeep Talent emissions that took place in RTDs every Thursday night in RTD.
Après vérification du processus et du résultat final qui se sont déroulés dans de bonnes conditions et dans la transparence, voici les deux gagnants de la 15e soirée du 16e du final du concours Jeep Talent 2023-2024. Premier gagnant, M. Sadir Wahib. Avec 18,81 sur 20. 18,81 sur 20. L'autre gagnant, c'est M. Mohamed Abdelkader.
For the international scene, G20 Brazil advocates for developing countries. G20 foreign ministers meet in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, to hold discussions on poverty, climate change, and heightened global tensions. G20 diplomats meet in Rio to establish over 2 days of roadmap on the work to be accomplished before the summit on November 18 and 19 in Rio. For this Brazilian, the G20 is the forum most likely to positively influence the international agenda. On one of Brazil's main proposals is reforms of global governance institutions such as the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, and multilateral banks to strengthen the representation of developing countries. The discussion is also focused on the role of the European Union can play in dealing with the current international tensions. With this meeting, Brazil is trying to position itself as a spokesperson and mediator of ongoing conflict. Indeed, Brazil is deeply concerned about the current international situation in matters of peace and security. Brazilian Minister Mauricio Vera told the other foreign ministers present at this meeting. And this is it for the news. Thanks for watching us. Have a good evening.